Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're going to the Hall of Flame. Now across the country we've gone to a lot of different attractions that have focused on different areas of military, law enforcement, and firefighters. But here in Phoenix they have something really cool that I'm super excited about seeing, and we actually saw a little piece of this when we were visiting Wildlife World. So from what I saw there, I was so excited to take you guys inside this building with me, so let's go. Okay, so we just made it inside, and oh my goodness, I just kind of got the rundown of what's going on. There are 4 separate galleries, 35,000 square feet. We're kind of going through a timeline within each one of these. So in the first gallery that you very first enter into, the oldest piece in the entire place is sitting right here, like literally in front of me, and I'm going to show you. It's just really neat. A couple things to note though, whenever you come in, they do have these nice little chains so you don't touch anything. They do have some vehicles which have been used in active fire situations, others which are parade vehicles. They have some that are very interesting and historic that have cool stories, and each one of them is labeled. Let me show you what those labels look like, and also a couple of the other features. Okay, right here, this is one of the little signs, for example. So on each one of the items, they have a sign that explains what kind of unit that it is, but on some of them, they have a QR code that you can actually hover over and see a video. Now, this place actually has its own YouTube channel, so I'm going to link that in the description box below so you can check out some more information. But from here, let's get going. We have about an hour before they close, and there's a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to start literally right here. This is the oldest piece that they have. This was actually a 1725 little fire rescue thing, and it is wild looking, very different than what we are used to now. Let me zoom out and show you a little bit better. Do you see this guy? Yeah, it's very different. But one of the things I really love about this is there's also a nice photo from a reprint of a paper here that would have shown what it would have been looking like as they were using it. Now this is a drawn image, of course, so it kind of just gives you a visual, but we love this because this shows us how they could implement all the different pieces of this equipment in a more practical use kind of way.
It actually looks like the old foot pedals off a sewing machine.
Oh, that's very cool.
So you'd have 12, 14 guys on the ground pumping.
So they would be pumping on the sides?
With their arms, and then you have 2 or 3 that would stand on these rails, straddling that bar, pumping with their legs, kind of like a Stairmaster.
Oh, wow.
And it could put out about 60 gallons a minute, and it would be enough to hit that wall.
Oh wow! So it would come out here,
come out the branch pipe,
and then it would go just toward the fire.
Because they didn't have flexible hose in the 1700s when this was made. So, but
Very
this was
cool.
a far cry better than the bucket brigade, which used to just throw buckets. You only got maybe a third of the bucket on the fire. Where this, we could put out a fire a lot faster. They could arc it through a window or onto a roof.
Very cool.
And so 1725, and then in 1844, as technology increases, we've got this piece. But this took 50 men to pump.
Oh my goodness, so much larger.
This arm would pop out, or drop down, on the front and the back. 12 guys on top, 13 on the bottom.
Oh wow.
This long arm drops into this receiver right here. The short arm into that receiver, and then 50 men would pump it up and down like that.
Oh wow.
And it was made for the city, which had very narrow streets, which is why it kind of has that transformer look and it folds up.
That's very cool.
So they could pull it down the city street. It was originally hand pulled, but they were wore out by the time they got there, so they converted it to horse-drawn.
Very cool. Thank you. As you can see, very cool stuff. I'm very excited to show you all some of these. And I don't have the knowledge about the firefighting like a lot of people do. I enjoy coming and learning though, because then we get new brain wrinkles, and then we can go about, and the next time that we see something that might be similar to this, we can then take that knowledge with us and implement it into that particular situation. So in a lot of these, because they are before technology, they have very primitive systems like he was showing us where they had to physically do it themselves. But as we move into some of the bigger galleries, like toward the back, you're going to see more modern things, and those are the ones that we're more familiar with. But before we do, envision yourself in a time where there is a fire, but there is not a fire truck in the traditional sense that we know now. It's one of these guys. Would you feel comfortable? Would you feel safe? Do you think that they were able to put out a lot of the things? Well, we're gonna learn. Let's go. Oh my goodness, these are so beautiful. Just the ability for them to put together such intricate design work, and then also the coloration. It's very bold, very beautiful, and this is actually part of the parade carriage row. So this one was from 1889, and you can see here all of these nice beautiful details. These were not used in any form or fashion to put out fires, only as parade vehicles. But look at how amazing that they are. Like even the etchings on this, look up close, the details are expansive. Now, like he was previously telling us, there were previously bucket brigades before they had the ability to pump or do anything like that. And these are some of the buckets that are actually on one of the really big ladder trucks here. Now, the cool thing about this that I just learned is that the buckets are actually made of leather so that they won't burn. I never knew that. But again, all of the details here. They have lanterns on them. These are all on these massive like carriage wheels, and a lot of these would have been pulled by horses. Another amazing sign right here telling us a little bit more about the banner that we're about to look at. This one's from Germany, and it's beautiful. Now, this has been preserved since 1909. So the things that we're finding here are historic, but they're not just from the United States. They're from different locations, which is what makes this museum so spectacular, because you can see the improvement in technology, the beauty, the details, and then also the history play out throughout each one of these galleries. And also got a couple other things in store for you. Now, if you've been coming along on my channel for a while, you know I'm a history buff, so I really enjoy seeing a good photo from the past. And here they have lots of different photos from the past, as well as several different stops that you can kind of ponder over while they talk to you. And I really like that. It puts things in context. Now, the things that you see in the gallery are beautiful and shiny and nice, and they have a history of saving so many people. However, a lot of times when you just associate a vehicle, you don't necessarily get to see the context behind it. So that's why photos like these make it all better. Here you can see the horses pulling out fire engine number 2, and this is an original picture from the Oregon Historical Society. But then in that same context, they have these areas that you can actually come through and flip through different publications, artwork, posters, historic photos, and you can see more. The more that you spin, the more that you learn. And here you can find not only the beauty of each one of these intricate designs, but also a little bit more information about some of them. I'm really loving this place. This is a great collection right here, for sure. Like right here, 1865, Volunteer Fire Department of New York City. Or here we learn about the 18th century Dutch fire engines and what exactly that they were made out of and all of the different parts of them. Then you can see an illustration that corresponds with that. Fire extinguishers throughout the past years. look very different than the fire extinguishers we have now. But there's a whole section here talking about these. And of course, you could not have a fire museum without learning a little bit more about fire hydrants, because these are the fuel that now helps them to put some of these flames out. Inside this, you can see what they look like, and then also read a little bit more. This is so fun. Inside this room is a theater, but atop you have all of these different fire helmets from different groups. Really neat to see. But let's go inside. Let's go inside the theater and see. Wow! What else is in here? Oh my goodness. Here we have figurines with firemen and firefighters, and they're very detailed. You can see each of their facial expressions, each one of them performing an action. These are just really cool. There's 2 cabinets of these. But as we continue through this room, there's actually an entire section of more of the different kinds of helmets that they would wear. And these are very interesting. Each one of them has a little placard telling when they were from and who wore them, and then of course you can see the details on each, and they're really beautiful. Some of them are so intricate and really neat. Like this one right here is cool because it's from the Riley Hose Company, number 4, and this was from Maine. But then this one is from Australia from 1900s. Huh. Speak of Australia, oh my goodness, it's an Aussie van man.
How's it going?
Hi, why are you wearing a fire jacket?
This is my old fire jacket from when I was a volunteer firefighter in Australia. I was part of the Rural Fire Brigade Service in New South Wales, and it's basically, we do motor vehicle accidents and forest firefighting and small stuff like that.
Very cool. So even though I'm a super buff on all these kind of things of learning and stuff like that, Brock already kind of knew a little bit about this place, so he said that I would really enjoy it. So he was like, you have to come. So I can see why now. I definitely can see why. There's so many cool things. This is just one room, one theater. They also have programs that you can watch here, and there's a QR code on this guy right here that you can hover over, and if you do, it takes you to another cool thing. This is just so much fun. I'm going to show you a few more of these helmets, and then we're going to move into the next room. We're making our pace through here pretty quickly because I don't want to miss out on anything, and I know they close at 6, so let's keep it going. This is weird. But it actually is something that's kind of functional. Right here it says that this is actually a device that was used to keep you protected from the smoke. It looks kind of crazy. And in fact, it looks like something out of a sci-fi movie right here, but wow, how far technology has come. Speaking of technology coming a long way, we are next to an area about paramedics and EMTs. And here you can see a person who is actually on a bicycle who is providing aid. But just across from that, we talk about fire in America a little bit more. And you can see the improved technology from that first gallery when it was like in the early 1800s. Very, very different. A lot of different medical supplies that were simply just not in existence back in the day. But also you can kind of see how the job description changed a little bit as the technology changed. And this is a good gallery to come into to learn a little bit more about that before we go into some of the more modern rigs. However, this area is also about heroes. Along this hall over here, you can see a wall of faces, and each of these faces are someone who has served proudly and helped others. In fact, it is here that we honor the firefighters who have passed away in the line of duty. This is the National Firefighting Hall of Fame Heroes, and this is a very significant portion of the museum and a large part of why I wanted to come here today. Along these walls you will find names, countless names of people who have passed away trying to help others. Their duty and service to help others did not let them go home at the end of the day. And here it is broken down by years and how many firefighters had passed away. Here you will find the names of each one of the 9/11 firefighters who passed away in the line of duty.
Over Lieutenant Daniel O'Callaghan.
Just beyond the reading of the names, you can find these plaques that talk a little bit more about all of those who proudly served on 9/11, and you can see their faces a bit closer. I think it's really important that we take note and stop here and just give this a moment. Behind me we have the 9/11 memorial pony. This is actually something that was created by an artist in Santa Fe, and it symbolizes the brave service of the people who lost their lives during 9/11. And below this you can find some of the helmets. It's a gorgeous sight, at the same time very somber moment, and with the sound of the bagpipes in the background, it really just takes you back to the day. I remember where I was on 9/11. I was living in Oklahoma and I woke up to the news and it was just chaos. I watched the news all day long and I kept seeing all of these horrific images, and even after the actual event happened, watching them on the pile trying to find people, it was just really somber and sad, and it was a really big moment for all of us here, and it was a moment that we all felt very insecure and not safe, and at the same time like we didn't know what was coming next. And so when I come through places like this and I try to put myself into the place of those people who served on that day, I can't even imagine what it would have been like to go into something thinking you may or may not ever come out. You may or may not ever be able to see your loved ones again. So coming to places like this is really important, guys. If you get an opportunity, come here, spend some time in this gallery, and kind of reflect. There's a few benches around where you can sit down and soak it in, and I highly recommend doing so because it's a very emotional thing that immediately takes you back there. It's crazy to me to think that there's an entire generation of people who weren't alive during that time and they don't understand the feeling of fear that we all experienced. So if you have a younger child, bring them here, let them see this, and then have that conversation. Just past that section, we come back into an area that has some really unique pieces. Like for example, this guy right here. He is a horse-drawn carriage that would also accompany these kind of pieces of equipment. This one right here is actually a steam engine. So we've moved forward in our technology just a little bit. Now, whenever he was talking to us in the beginning, do you remember how he said that they didn't have the ability to have hoses at that time, so they had to pipe everything through metal and then just kind of arc it? Well, this has a hose, so it's a little further down the timeline like I was saying, but the hoses were developed to really be able to move the water into the places specifically that it needed to be, because the buckets weren't doing it. You weren't getting near as much water toward the fire, and then those arcing things, you can only deliver so much water at a time, and it took a lot of manpower. But these guys were way more efficient, and they were able to pump a lot more gallons in a lot shorter time. As a result, that made fighting fires a bit less complicated when it came to the actual getting of the water from point A to point B. Now, there was still a lot of danger that came into play. However, this took them a little bit further away from the possibility of everything just burning to the ground and having to do fire mitigation to other buildings around. And this helped them to be able to isolate fires, which is a huge advancement. Now we move into this gallery, which is another massive, huge, beautiful gallery. I'm going to show you around real quick. We'll talk about a few of them, but I'm going to show you some of my favorites right now. Nothing to see. Oh gosh, back. I can do lights.
Yeah. Oh,
Yay! I can do lights. Woo! This is as close to a fire truck driver as I will ever be. But wow, this thing is big. Super big. I would be so scared driving this. They don't have sirens for us. It would be too loud inside. But the lights, I get to play with the lights. Why is the steering wheel so big? It's huge. Look at this. Like, how do you drive this?
I could tell you. Because I didn't have power steering back then.
Like, how? How do you drive this?
Enormous arm strength.
No arm strength.
Yeah, that's why they needed the steering wheel so big back then.
Wow. I want to do the lights again.
Oh, firefighter bunny. You can put that helmet on too if you want.
It says Phoenix on it.
Oh, it's probably donated, I'd say.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. It's so big on my head. I have such a tiny head. Isn't it fun? I think so. Okay, so from my perspective, there's a lot of interesting buttons, most of which you can't touch because they're covered, which is fine. I don't need to touch all of them. The steering wheel's massive. The buttons that you can touch are right here. One is the lights, and you can see, yes. This one is the choke, so it doesn't really do anything, and this one doesn't either, but this one's fun. We like pushing a good button. Oh yeah, and if you want to be super official, you can also get all of these different pieces and put them on so you can look super cool. And it kind of gives you an idea of how heavy the gear is. So this is just the very basic gear, but at the same time, it is not light. I'll let you know that. And these boots, they're very, they're very big. So all of them would swallow my feet. Oh my goodness. This thing is huge. I will say the theme of the day is it's big. It's really, really big. And in this gallery specifically, super, super big. He did tell us that a lot of these trucks are much larger in this gallery, but whenever we turned the corner, I was like, wow. Ooh, look at this one. This is really cool looking. This is an old print, and you can see the artist name there, but then you can pull back and here is the very vehicle that the print was designed from. This is a unique looking thing, to say the least. And have you ever seen in the movies where they're telling them to jump? This is actually one of the things that would have caught them. Again, we love a good sign. This is actually a Mack Holloway ladder and chemical truck from 1922 right here, and it talks a little bit more about when it was used. Back to this net right here, it says, up until the late 1960s, fire departments would use things like this, but a lot of firemen were actually injured while trying to make rescues with this net. So this was originally what they would do, but now they've changed it up a little bit. Now, as you can imagine, all of these fire trucks at one point in time did not look this shiny and nice. They've actually all been redone, and on each of these signs it also tells you when they were redone and who redid them. And the detail that they used and the precision to like the pinstriping, beautiful. So beautiful. It's like coming into a car lot and seeing all the shiny cars, except for these cars have history and they have done so many things. Each one of these, can you imagine how many people that they saved? Can you imagine how many people that they helped to keep their homes or businesses? Each one of these is living its new life, and I think it's great that it's being restored to this place so that we can come in and see it for what it was, but also know that it has a story behind it. And at each detail and each angle you get to learn a little bit more, and I think that that's what makes it so spectacular. Each shiny little detail, every single piece. This is actually from a Mack model 45S, and it was called the District Fire Engine from 1948. But you couldn't tell me from seeing this now that this was a thing from the 40s. It looks brand new. And I think that's a celebration to the people who once served on these trucks, bringing them back, letting these trucks tell their stories, and celebrating their work that they did. I always give props to all the firefighters out there, especially the volunteer ones, because I know it's a hard job and you're putting literally your life on the line every time that you go to help others. So thank you guys. If you're seeing this, thank you. This is actually a 1900s chemical cart. And this tube here would have been where everything was stored. Now these were considered to be a rapid response rig. It was something that was easy to get there and start the work. And this guy right here is amazing. The woodwork on it is so beautiful. This is number 38. It's at the back of this gallery. And this particular piece is actually the Seagrave City Service ladder truck from Oh wow, this one is epic. This is white. I've not seen one that looks like this. This is really cool. I want to know the story on this one. Let's go find the thing. It's right here. This one is actually the American LaFrance Type 400 fire engine from 1935, and it was actually used in Norfolk, Nebraska for a while. We learn here that only about 170 Model 400s were actually built between 1933 and 1938, and a few departments could afford them, but they were pretty pricey. Now previously we were looking at the gear over by the photo area, but here you can actually see the breathing apparatus portion of what many firefighters would use. And this is where you get into some massive weight, definitely. But you can also kind of see the difference in styles as time has kind of gone by, where they started, where they are, and kind of everything in between. This is a super fun display. This is Smokey Stover, and firefighters were actually represented a lot in the funny papers, and this was one of the ways that they were. This was running from 1935 to 1972 in the Chicago Tribute Syndicate, and then also a couple of other things. It tells us over on this what each one of these pieces happens to be, and so you can see which item it is and then go over here and learn a little bit more. For example, I thought it was really cute that this is like here and available, and it's like a comic book and then actually a funny paper, and then they have tiny books, but also they had patches which were really worn by fire department workers. So that's kind of cool too. It was very symbolic. It's kind of like Snoopy with NASA. It became a thing, and I love that. And as you can see, this is the gallery we were just in. It is huge. So I only touched on a few things. You guys are going to have to come here and see the rest. It's amazing. But right next to that is the gallery that we actually entered through, that we went to before we went to the theater. And again, huge gallery. This is all older equipment. The parade vehicles are like right here in the middle. And then you can see some really impressive things like up against this wall also. I really loved especially this one, because this one has an old school bell on it. The others that we were just looking at had a more traditional looking bell. These have the little bells that remind me of school. I don't know, it just is what it is. But beyond that, we're going into galleries 3 and 4, which is right through here. We began this gallery with cap badges and lapel insignias from Great Britain from the 1930s to the 1950s. Here you can find a variety of really intricate designs, each of which have the location that they represent on them. You just have to get in there pretty close. And then we embark upon the patches. Now, as a van person, I have patches that I collect from the places that I go. My patches have significance to me because they tell my story of where I've been. However, these patches are a patch of honor that describe where this person works, what they have contributed, and what they are doing within the department. And here you will find each of these is labeled at the top with a letter, so you can find the corresponding area of where they came from, kind of on a registry. There are so many, guys. We're literally going through wall after wall after wall of them, and some of them have just very basic plain patches, others have very intricate designs. As we follow the patch wall around though, we end up in a section that is very kid friendly. I want to show you what exactly it has. First and foremost, anytime I see lights, I get super excited. So this is a section that shows you all of the different pressure governors, engine controls, what the tank controls look like. And this is a really fun way for you to kind of be able to get in here and look at these and see what you could expect if you were driving a more modern fire truck today. Also, there is a Ride the Steamer area, which is super cute. It's just a coin operated little steamer that is super fun. It's reminiscent of some of those that we saw in the first gallery. We can follow the patches around, and it leads us to this area where they do programs, and then they also have different interactive things that they can show people, and they have this nice little seating area right here. But this is epic, the safety house. I remember when I was a kid, we went to a local firehouse and they took us through their safety training for kids, and it was kind of interesting. They had like this fake smoke smell that was kind of strange, and they tell you how you stop, drop, and roll, and they tell you how you get below the smoke if you're in a house fire and all of those things. So seeing this, it's kind of like the version that is here of that, but it goes into more detail, and we're about to find out a little bit more about that. Again, a QR code, super interactive, definitely awesome. Especially for those who are using screens all the time, this is a great way to keep this and scan over it and then take it with you. But here in each one of the sections of the house, it tells you a little bit more about something. For example, right here talks about fireplaces, and you're listening to this little dog who's in the corner that's kind of hard to see. His name is Milo, and he's telling you about fire safety. In fact, Milo is present all around the room, and in each one of these sections is telling you a little bit more about something that you might want to know. For example, remember the safe zone is an imaginary line around the stove. It bends and it winds. So here is where they're suggesting that you shouldn't get too close to if you're a kiddo, which makes sense because you don't want to touch the top and you don't want to pull it out and put your hand in. But the reason why I really like this is because they can go over very simple things and help parents have a relatable way to express things to their children. For example, you can't always see things that are hot, like a kettle on the stove or a coffee in the pot. That doesn't mean that they're not hot. The second room of the safety house shows us a traditional bedroom, and it just keeps going with all of the good tips. So it shows you all of the different things that you might want to know about electricity and staying safe, but then it also gives the kiddos a way to have a little bit of fun while they're here so that they can interact with the room around them and learn a little bit more. One of the things that I learned very early on is people have different learning styles, and as a child especially, it's important to figure out what that learning style is. For some, they can read and retain. For others, they need to be tactile and do things. For others, they just need to hear it over and over. And so this area touches on all of those things and also provides you the QR code so that you can take the knowledge with you for reinforcement. It also gives you some pretty sad facts right here. Every 15 hours, a child dies in a fire. Every 6 hours, a fire starts at a college dorm. Every 2 hours, someone dies in a fire. Every 85 seconds, a fire breaks out in a vehicle. And it goes on and on. There's also some cool places that you can get some really neat photos back here. I'm loving this. This is the fastest tour I've ever taken. Oh my goodness, there's just so much here. I don't want to miss anything, but I'm limited on time. So let's just keep it moving into the next gallery where we have some forestry department firefighting. That's right, forestry department firefighting. That's super important to us as nomads. So let's learn a little bit more. Now, as we're going around this room, they have a series of different photos along the walls and a little bit of information kind of as you go. I really appreciate this because it actually breaks it down into the kind of service that is being provided in the photos. So like these are type 2 crews right here. And then right here, we actually have hot shots. And each one has a series of photos to kind of explain what their job is and how they're doing their job. So you can kind of visually take that in and be like, oh, okay, I get that now. That job makes sense because it's a little different than traditional firefighting. Also in this section, you can see what the typical equipment that might be used by these crews would look like. And here you can find just basic things, but also some things that might not be the thing that you would think of first. One of the things that I am kind of seeing a lot of in this section, Smokey Bear. As you guys know, I have actually been to where Smokey Bear was found, and it is in New Mexico. I definitely encourage you guys to go and check that out. If you can, I have a video for it, and I will try to link that below so that you can go check it out. Next to where we are, though, is actually a fire tower. Now, fire towers are something that we're super familiar with. When we were in the Pacific Northwest, we saw tons of these and actually explored a few at the Timber Museum. But seeing this one here in context to the lookout cabins and seeing the actual people who would have had to have done this job and what they would have been able to do from that distance is just spectacular. Like literally that's what saved so many of our forests, is people just out there being vigilant and looking from these places, reporting immediately and getting people dispatched. So that's what that entire section is really bringing to life for us. Some of the older people who have been in this, some of the newer people who are still currently doing the job, and the respect that we have for our forests. Now, you might have been noticing that there are numbers on each one of these. Well, there are books where you can pick up the book and actually find the reference for each one so you can get exact context. Again, for the purpose of this video, we're not going to go into each and every one of those, but they do have books available for you. Definitely check that out. It's an old school Smokey costume. So exciting. Since we just learned about the hot shots, it's time for us to learn about this particular truck and why it is important. This is important to our area specifically. It is a 2004 Ford F-750 buggy for the Granite Mountain Hot Shots. Why is this important? Well, because this particular truck was the truck for a group of brave men and women who actually were dispersed out to an area just outside of Prescott. In their attempt to get out to a fire, the fire actually spiraled and got really bad really fast, and 19 people lost their lives. They have this here as a memorial to them, so you can see this, and it's been redone. It looks very nice, and again, it pays tribute to them and their service right here in the museum. There's actually a memoir that has been done, and it tells the story of this group, but here's a photo of the group that actually lost their lives on that particular day. And as you can see, they were just your average everyday guy. They were your friends, your neighbors, your brothers, your uncles maybe, and they lost their lives trying to save so many people. And this again is the truck that took them to their final place. It's just really sad to see this, but at the same time, it's an honor to be able to tell you all the story of these people so that you could learn a little bit more about them. Again, there's so many stories. Each one of these trucks has stories. Some of them are just told a little bit more than others because of their proximity to the location that we were in. But there's one more that I definitely want to touch on before we leave today. And this one is a big one, guys. This one is one that, again, goes back to the room we were in earlier. This one was from 9/11, and I feel like it's definitely necessary for us to see this one and talk about it a little bit.
She's like, no, it's just like everything, it's been atomized into the air, you're breathing it in.
So the picture we just looked at was actually from the day, and those images are burned into our brain. We remember those. And you've probably even seen the truck before, but they've restored it here to bring it back to its glory so that they can again honor those who served. Now this truck was pretty impressive in its day. It's pretty impressive now, but as you can see, this was one of the official trucks that was at 9/11. You can see they've modified it a little bit to share the names of those who actually served on this truck and who lost their lives that day. I'm just going to show you this and take a somber moment for just a moment, and then we'll move forth. Following that particular truck, I wanted to show you what an alarm room system for Phoenix looks like. As you can see, there are switchboards, there are maps. This is how they would dispatch people, and you can actually hear some of the calls that are actually taking place right now. This is not a tape. It says very clearly that these are actual calls that are coming in at any given time in the Phoenix area. And this is why this museum exists. That's why I wanted to come here. It's very important for us to acknowledge not only the past, but the present, and coming full circle within a space like this. The 9/11 truck tells us a dark part of our history. The Prescott Fire Department also does. However, as we are able to see the call center here, we're able to see that there are pieces of history still unfolding to this very moment. And so that's why we wanted to come here and share this with you. If you know a fire department person, give them a high five, give them a handshake, and tell them thank you. They definitely deserve it. I've had a good time here, and we just scratched the surface. There's a lot of other things here that you can come in and see, and I definitely encourage you to do so. From the kid-friendly areas to the more adult-centric areas, this is a place for the whole family, and I have definitely enjoyed it. Wow guys, I just got back outside and I was just soaking in some of those things as I was leaving, and wow, it was spectacular. I'm so happy that we came here. This is the Largest Firefighter Museum. Definitely encourage you guys to get here and check it out. The cost is very minimal and the experience is very much so amazing. If you're a person who enjoys history or seeing things that are similar to this is going to be right up your alley. I know I enjoyed it. Remember guys, we're not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time. All the brain wrinkles for me are just that. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to say thank you to Aussie Van Man for bringing me here. He told me about this, said I would love it. He was right, and I'm looking forward to some more Phoenix adventures. If you are, make sure that you follow the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!